what's up, everybody? Hey, Anthony, what's going on, man?
Going on.
Well, daggone guys, tonight we got a exciting show. We got the most recent stage winner, Anthony Gagliardi, just won stage three at Lake Murray. In case you haven't heard, congratulations, man.
Thank you. Was that intro from, that looked like St. Lawrence River.
St. Lawrence River,
That's
yeah,
what I thought.
St. Lawrence
Brought
River.
back some bad memories there for a little bit.
You and those bad memories, man. So look, you know, everybody knows Lake Murray is your home lake, and
Right.
and coming into the event, did you have an advantage?
Obviously, I did. I mean, I had an advantage. To what extent, like, could be debated, but I'm familiar with the lake. Like, I've lived there for a long time, and I definitely have a lot of history there. That being said, I felt like the time of year that we were coming, April, the spawn, I felt like any advantage that I had was largely negated just because of the time of year. The fish were going to be up shallow, they're going to be spawning, and any local, in my opinion, in that time of year, I think your advantage is less than just because the fish are up, accessible. There's not a lot of secret spots, or locations that a local would know that are going to be advantageous then, because the fish are just going to be up there shallow. Guys are going to be able to cover water, fish the bank, and find them on the bed. So I honestly didn't feel like my advantage was going to be, anything up and above just, being able to fish, sleeping on the bed, being on a lake that I'm familiar with and comfortable fishing on. So obviously there was definitely an advantage, but I was worried about how big that advantage might be in the weeks and months leading up to the event. And as it got closer, I started to feel a little bit better about some of the things that I thought might be going on. And I spent a little bit of time out there over the winter, just looking around. But I was still worried. I was nervous a little bit. I put pressure on myself, obviously, I've won twice there, finished fourth in the cup there, second place there. So I felt like I'm supposed to do good, and I know a lot of people think that I should do good, and so you put pressure on yourself, obviously, and that kind of pressure is what leads to a lot of local anglers on their home lake struggling. I think that you just kind of, whether you start fishing too fast, whether you start you start to second guess decisions because you have all these different ways you feel like to catch fish. That's the trouble I think that the local angler runs into when they fish on their home lake. Is just you obviously a lot, and so sometimes when things aren't going quite the way they should, you might abandon something too soon, or you're quick to change tactics, you're quick to move areas, and sometimes that can work against you.
Yeah, I mean, I know, you and I talked about it, and I kind of gave you a hard time about it. Especially, going into that last day, and it looked like it was going to be a weather change that ended up really not happening until the last, little bit of the tournament. But I know we talked about, the advantage of you knowing more spots on the lake, and a friend of yours quickly got me straight on that you don't fish the lake this time of the year, so it's really like you don't have that home lake advantage like a lot of people would think, because we are gone, I mean, a lot in the
Right.
spring.
Yeah, spring of the year, that's the meat of our season. And so the herring spawn, everybody is familiar with the herring spawn, and that's the bite that I know the least on the lake, and that's the truth. Like, that's what I know the least, because that's when I'm usually gone. I'm out of town. If it happened to be going on and I'd been away from home for 2 weeks, and I am home, like, I still, like, I just, my first inclination is not to back the boat in the water and get fishing. I'm doing things with the family, catching up on things at the house that needed to be done. So springtime fishing, I used to do a lot. Obviously, before I started fishing professionally, I used to fish in the spring an awful lot on Lake Murray, and that's where I learned, a lot of the techniques and tactics that I use. But over the last decade or so, I've not spent near as much time as most people probably think that I have. And so I was worried that the herring spawn was going to be something that I was going to have to dedicate a lot of time to, and I honestly thought that that's how it would be won. I figured it would be won in the herring with the herring spawn. And I did good 2 years ago, fishing the herring spawn, but I only had about 4 or 5 places where I was catching fish, and so I knew that there was a good chance that, man, if they're you don't have a whole lot of that stuff to run, so if they're not on it really good, then you're probably going to have to come up with another way to catch these fish, and that's what I really focused most of my practice on, was just trying to figure out a different, something different that I could do to just differentiate myself from everybody else, because I kind of felt like I was just in the same boat everybody else was. I'm throwing the same baits. We're all fishing the same places. And so I wanted to do something where I felt like, I'm separated from the pack. I can fish all the stuff that I want and not have to worry about sharing water with somebody. And that's what I ended up doing. When I found those fish on the drop shot, I was just able to run all that kind of stuff and not worry about other people. I could fish. I had a lot of things I could fish, and I could save things for the next day. And even on the final day, I think probably 2/3, 2 of the 3 periods I spent fishing water that I had not fished yet in the tournament, which turned out to be key.
So, there's a lot I want to talk about, but the main thing is that 8 pounder you caught.
Mm-hmm.
When I know it was kind of special how you found that fish, and I mean you don't have to get into it if you don't want to, but at what point did you realize how big that thing was?
Yeah, when I set the hook on it, and we'll talk. Man, people are probably wondering what you meant when you say I found it, but I saw a rock, or it was a little piece of brush or something on my perspective. Like my boat had already passed that, and I just noticed on the bottom corner of my perspective screen that there was something out there, and it was almost off the screen because I was moving forward. So I panned over with the forward facing, and I could see it. I didn't see the fish. Like I didn't see a fish there. I threw at that whatever it was. And when I set the hook, I even remember saying, like, this is a big one. Like I knew it was a good one. I'm thinking 5 pounder. That's what I was thinking. 5 pounder. And it even came up to the top, and I got a chance to see it not long after I set the hook, and I saw it, and I thought it was, it's 5 pounder. And I moved back to the passenger seat to get ready to land it, and that's when it started. It started bulldogging up towards the bow. So I had to get back up on the front of the boat, up at the trolling motor, and it started pulling drag. And that's when I knew, like, it's bigger fish than what I thought. Like, I don't know how big it was. I didn't think it was an 8 pounder, but now I'm thinking, like, it's a 6 pounder or bigger probably. And you can hear me, you can hear my voice while I'm fighting it. Like, I knew I needed it. Like, I knew that was going to be the fish that was going to give me a chance to make a run at this thing. And so when it came, it finally got back beside the boat, and it came up to the top and jumped a little bit. And that's when I was like, this is a giant. Like, you got to get this one in, because this is the key fish of this event for you. And so when I put my hands on her, I was thinking 8 pounder. Like, it was a big, fat, pretty fish. And I was like, this might be an 8 pounder.
Every fish you caught was on a spinning rod last week.
Every fish except two. I caught 2 off the bed, I think, in the knockout round. That they were on a drop shot. They weren't on a spinning rod. But every fish that I weighed in, like every fish that was in my best 5 each day, was on the drop shot. But two of those were bedding fish. So I guess however many days I fished, every one except 2 I caught on a spinning rod.
That's crazy. I know there's a video up on your Facebook page about the line that you used for that drop shot. If you would just kind of talk a little bit about that, braid to fluorocarbon, whatever it was, just kind of
braid to fluoro. It was 10-pound gamma torque braid to a 12-pound gamma leader material. And I was throwing the fluorocarbon leader material. So that 12-pound leader material is strong. Like it's stronger than your average 12-pound test. So it wasn't a finesse setup. I was throwing a 4/0, heavy wire hook. So I was boat flipping 4-pounders. Like, I flipped a lot of 4-pounders in. So, and the reason being, the fish did not seem in any way, line shy. So I knew I could get away with heavier lines. So I just went with a beefier setup, and even a stiffer rod. The rod I was throwing was a level 7-foot medium, which is the rod I would usually throw like I'd throw a shaky head on it. That's the rod if I'm trying to, or a float worm. Something I'm making a long cast and I need to drive a hook in. with heavier line, that's what I throw. So that's the one I was throwing that drop shot on, just because I knew that I was fishing for bigger fish, and I wanted to be able to handle them and not have to finesse them so much when they got up beside the boat. So yeah, that was big for me. Being able to land some of those fish and not have to boat flip those 3 and 4 pounders just to get them in the boat and not play around with them beside the boat and give them a chance to come off. So yeah, line combination I think was key also.
So the confidence that you gain from Lake Murray, are you going to be able to carry that momentum forward to the
I
next
see you
event?
smiling. Like I think you know me too well. You're kind of baiting me right here. Um, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll take some confidence with me to Gunnersville. Um, but I'm sure you'll hear me. You'll probably hear me whine a little bit and talk about not catching any in practice here and there. But no, I will, and yeah, for sure. Anytime you win an event, just from a I mean, just from the money standpoint, like your year's good. I mean, my year's going to be good now, um, so it takes a little bit of pressure off. So I think you can fish a little bit more relaxed. You're not so much worried about, man, I sure would like to get a check in this next one, and I still want
Right.
to do as well as you can, from a point standpoint. But anytime you win an event like that, it just takes a little bit of that pressure off, and it just allows you to relax a little bit more. And I think just relaxing in and of itself will help you to fish better. And so I look to carry some of that momentum over for sure.
So, with that being said, why do you think you're so consistent at Murray? I mean, we've already kind of established it's not the home lake advantage because you're never
Mm-hmm.
there, but you always do good at Murray.
Um, I don't know. Like I really can't put my finger on it and say for sure why. Because when you look at the tournaments that I've won and the ones that I've done good there, they've been doing a lot of different things. One was in February. It was 2006. That was the first time I won there, and it was cold. I caught fish some on a drop shot, then on a heavy drop shot, and a lot of them on a heavy jig, like a 3/4 ounce jig, and some cranking in that event. And I mean, the next one that I won was 2014. That was a 4 foot cup, and that was more of the summertime suspended bite, the schooling bite. I also fished up in the river a little bit, throwing a big 10-inch worm. A fourth place finish in 18, doing the same thing. There was another summertime event. That's the one Justin Atkins won. And then second 2 years ago in the herring spawn tournament, in April. So it's been doing a lot of different things, and I just think it goes back to um, I'm comfortable. I've spent a lot of time there, over the years, and maybe it's not a deal where, man, he's just built up. He's got a bunch of spots, like he knows where all the good places are. That's not what it is. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Because I always end up fishing in places that I've really never fished before, or spent much time on. I just think it's a comfort level that you build with the lake. And so as the tournament goes on, the more days I get out there on the water and the more information I'm gathering, I just have a lot of history about the lake itself to pull from. And I'm able to kind of use each day as a practice day. And it seems like I'm able to somehow or another, better my ways and just make better use of my time. Each day that I'm able to stay on the water there in the event, seems like I just get more dialed in. And obviously, I know the lake good enough that I feel like if I kind of figure something out, then I know some other places and areas that I can go do whatever it is that I'm trying to do. So that's part of it, and the other part could be the fact that I don't spend so many times every waking moment on the lake. So I'm forced to kind of look at it from an outsider's perspective at times, and I force myself to fish it in new and different ways and different techniques. And so I don't really get hung up on something because I've gone out there 100 different days in the last year, and I've caught them on that spot right there. And so,
Right.
and when the tournament gets here, I'm going to catch them on that spot because I've caught them 100 days there this year. So, without having that kind of, that kind of history, clogging up your brain and the way you approach it, I think maybe that's kind of what helps me do well there is that I know the lake well, but I don't necessarily fish it, too terribly much.
Right. It's crazy how each event has been different. And I think you're right because I know a lot of times the home field advantage is not good. Usually the guy
Right.
that lives on the lake doesn't do well, and Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head right there when you said you don't have like any preconceived ideas of what's going to
Right.
happen. You
That's
just go
true.
fishing,
Yeah.
and I think that probably would help a lot of people in a lot of tournaments everywhere. You know,
Right.
you caught them the day before in practice, and if they don't bite that next day, you just keep pounding that same
You
pattern,
keep trying to make something
right?
work. That's right.
Instead of just being able to adjust and move on. I got to ask you, um, where's the trophy?
It's at home.
At
Well,
home.
I'm at the beach. Like, yeah, it's our spring break, kids' spring break. So we came to the beach Monday morning. Did not bring the trophy with me. Didn't really. Um, I didn't know I was going to need the trophy with me, so
Shoot,
I
that
didn't want
thing
it to
would be
get all rusted up here at the beach. Anyway, it would have probably started rusting if I brought it here.
it'd
But
probably be strapped in the front seat of my truck for the next 2 months. But so you know, the story, the fishing story, has been told, a million times. I just want to, let everybody that doesn't know Anthony, he's a family guy, man. When he's not fishing, he wants to be with his kids and his wife, and it's really cool to watch. It's cool to watch, him be successful, and it's nothing fake about you, Anthony. That's one thing I can say.
right,
It's
I hope
real,
not.
and it's pretty cool to watch. But you're running a new motor this year. Let's
Yep.
talk a little bit about that, because I think a lot of guys are not taking advantage of what we are.
Right. Yeah, I mean I'm running the new digital 250 SS Suzuki, and man, each and every tournament, like I become more and more impressed with it, and even some of the guys that have been in the boat with me this year, especially when I've had a camera guy in the boat with me with three people, and it has impressed me beyond belief what the kind of response I get, and the whole shot still and the top end and everything with the load that I'm carrying. It's really impressive, and I think that's the one thing that people don't realize about that engine. I think everybody knows that the Suzuki name is synonymous with, reliability, and that's why here at the beach, everything in the ocean has got a Suzuki on it, because everybody
Right.
wants to get out there to those fish and know that they can get back in, and so they're running Suzuki. So the Suzuki name is known for that, and I think that resonates with people. But what they don't realize is, man, the performance of this motor is right there with everything else. And so, from a bass fisherman standpoint, once they realize that, once people start seeing that, and they will, then I think the Suzuki is going to make a huge charge in the freshwater side, in particular the bass fishing side.
Yeah, I mean the crazy part is the fuel mileage too. The fuel mileage is
Yeah,
really good, but
I've noticed that. It's funny you say that, especially in practice when I'm kind of running around not wide open. I'll pay attention to that every once in a while, and I can run. I'm running 58, 60 miles an hour, um, and getting like 3.5 miles per gallon, and that's crazy. At that speed, I've never had an engine that I can get that kind of mileage at a speed like that. Even at wide open, like even when you're bumping on up from there, it's pretty good. But just the cruising speeds that you can cruise around with and get, I mean, considerably good fuel mileage has been impressive to me.
right. So I'll challenge anybody right now that wants to send Anthony a message. We'll get to take you for a ride. You'll be
Yeah,
impressed with the Suzuki. It's we got a bunch of
yeah.
guys running this year. They're bulletproof. The fuel economy is crazy. The
Well, and I
loading
think
torque.
you're right. I mean, just talk about the other guys running. I mean, that's just a sign that like people are starting to realize. I mean, you're starting to see more and more guys each year in them, and I think it's just going to continue to grow like that.
I believe that, and just from what little bit of service background I have, they don't give any problems. They're just
Mm-hmm.
never any problems. And knock on wood, there's always something that goes wrong, but it's usually not the engine's fault. It's guys
Right.
hit a stump or or
Right.
something like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I'm a year and a half into the two of mine, and like I said, knock on wood, I've not had a single solitary issue.
All right, so on to the next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was one of your sponsors, Blackfish.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, we have had some serious serious freaking conditions this
Yeah, I
year.
know.
From freezing cold to smoking hot, within the same 2 weeks.
Yeah, same with the same week.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Douglas Lake, it was, yeah, it went
Yeah.
from cold to hot.
Well, I
Sure.
mean, we both have a relationship with blackfish, and they came from the ice fishing world.
Yeah.
So if you want to stay warm, they definitely got it covered with and I'll let you talk about some of the items of clothing that you like.
Yeah. Man, I mean, I think the one that I've utilized the most this year because it has been so cold is the storm skin, and that's the stuff that. And funny enough, I don't think that I had any of the storm skin stuff last year. I was using like the soft shell jacket and stuff like that, which was great. But I got turned on to the storm skin this year, and man, I love it to death. Like it's so warm. But the thing about it, to me, that makes it unique, and the reason that I like it the most is just you can move. Like it's non-restrictive. It just for something that warm, I've never worn something that was that warm before that still allowed for the freedom of motion that storm skin has, and so normally if you're fishing out there in 20-degree weather like we were at Douglas Lake, you got guys you're putting a base layer on, you're wearing a long sleeve, then you got a hoodie on, then people put their rain suit on top of that, and then when it's all said and done, it's hard to even it's hard to move. And when you fish like that all day long, I mean, it just takes a toll on your body. But I fished Douglas with my jersey. I had a t-shirt, my jersey, and then my storm skin pullover, and that was it. And would stay plenty warm. I mean, I didn't need to be any warmer, and you could still move. It was just like you're out there in a normal shirt. And I was throwing a jerk bait all day, and I swear I really feel just like having that and fishing in that storm skin made a difference in my fatigue level at the end of the day. But even the pants, like I have the storm skin pants that you can take on and off. Like I've been super impressed with that stuff. And like you said, their background in ice fishing, like their cold weather gear is legit. I mean, it just is. And the rain suits are great too. I mean, so but I don't have to wear my rain suit anymore unless it's raining. Like I used to wear my rain gear on top of my cold weather clothes because I needed that extra protection against the wind and everything. So
Right.
now I don't do that. Like I wear the jacket or a pullover, and that's it. And that's all I need.
Right. It's pretty impressive stuff. We've got all sorts of new stuff coming out. Boots, shorts,
Yeah,
new
boots are
new
great. I
sun
got the boots
shirts.
already.
New material.
Hmm.
Um, it if you're looking to stay warm or protect yourself from the sun, definitely check out the guys at Blackfish. We got a few questions up here, Anthony.
Yeah,
Let's knock out a
let's get to
couple of
'em.
these right now. I'm gonna pop this one up.
I see one. What's the deepest you've ever caught them on Lake
Yeah,
Murray? 50 foot.
you got to do them in my order.
Well, I haven't caught my eye. 50 foot.
What's a good topwater lure? I guess any conditions. Maybe mention a couple of or talk about a few of the topwaters that you use.
Um, it just depends on the time of year. We throw a lot of walking baits there. Obviously, the I'm a skimmer is a bait that a lot of the guys at Lake Murray throw. The old pencil poppers, in the summertime can be good sometimes. Um, Man, I mean the Strike King, Sexy Dog is a good top water. There's a lot of them. And to be honest, I don't fish with the walking bait all that much. On Murray, I tend to, I err toward the side of the soft plastic jerk baits more often than that. Now, if it's real calm in the summertime, if it's dead slick calm, then I'll throw some type of walking bait sometimes. But most of the time, I get more bites. I can generate more bites with a soft plastic jerk bait fishing out there with a suspended fish. But yeah, those ones that I mentioned they're as good. They're as good as any.
Well, how about just while we're on the topwater subject, just talk about that herring bite. I know it can be quite confusing.
Now you're
What would
talking
you
about
tell
spring, like the herring spawn, or
well,
like
just
the
the
summertime?
even during the summer,
Right.
the fish tend to follow the herring, and it can change the lake. Like I know Bugs Island, it's changed Bugs Island from
Right.
a
A lot of the stuff in the summer is shad too, though. We get there's places on the lake where you'll see one come up chasing the herring, and then the next thing you know, they're busting shad on the same place. So, I think in the summertime, the shad and the herring are kind of interchangeable. The fish use the places that they use, and either herring swims by or shad swims by, and I don't think they really have a preference one way or the other. Now, the springtime stuff is more of a pure herring related bite because these herring like to spawn up on top of the points, and they get on these long shoals, these shallow points. Whereas a shad, shad, any guys that fish a shad spawn, though, you catch them in marinas, and you can catch them inside pockets on docks. I mean, they don't really necessarily gravitate to the points, but the herring tend to. They don't always, gravitate on the points, but that's where they tend to. That's where they are most of the time. So you can definitely see a difference between a herring spawn and a shad spawn. I think the herring spawn starts a little bit sooner in a little bit cooler water temperatures, and then as the herring kind of finish up, the shad are starting to spawn, and so you can kind of fish both of them. But the herring will usually start first, and then the shad will kind of start sometime during the herring spawn, and then continue on after the herring quit spawning.
All right, so let's go on to this next one. Maybe you can talk a little bit about this. The deepest you ever caught one at Murray on a drop shot.
Well, no, on a drop shot that might be
Just
different.
you ever caught them, period, right?
Yeah, I mean, the deepest one I've ever caught on a drop shot probably in the upper 30s, and it's not been many. Deep, I know I caught some one time out in like 50 on a 1 ounce spoon, but it's few and far between.
All right, how about there was one up here I saw. I just want to kind of talk about from Ronnie. And this isn't really anything for you. It's just to say that you do have probably one of the most impressive records on the home lake of anybody. It's crazy. So when you were in college,
the guy that asked that question he could probably beat me 1-on-1 head to head on any given day on the lake.
All right.
He's a good fisherman.
That's incredible, though. That the record you had. Now, did you fish there before, like in college? Did you fish
Well, I
the lake
fished
much
there.
in college?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, man. When I think we had a weekend house there when I was in 5th grade. I grew up in the upstate, Gaffney, South Carolina. But we used to come to Murray. We used to come down there and camp on Drew Island. Like that's where I always wanted to go for my birthday. Was in August. I'd want to go down to Drew Island. We'd take a tent, we'd camp, and we'd just fish, for 3 or 4 days. And I remember catching schooling fish. When I was 8 years old, we were catching schooling fish. And there'd be 2 acres of fish, and they'd all be bass. They used to school so good on that lake in the summertime. But and so when I was in college at Clemson, the weekends and the summers, I was still coming back home. Fishing on Murray. So I spent a lot of time there even before I moved to it.
Right, and more about the incredible run. But what size drop shot?
What size? Yeah, 12-pound. I was throwing 12-pound leader material, the Gamma. Quarter ounce.
What about the actual weight? Because you were
quarter
fishing.
Ounce. Yeah, it was quarter ounce.
The teardrop or the cylinder?
Teardrop. Yep.
Gotcha. All right, let's see here. This is a good one. Does it feel like winning such a big tournament at your level of fishing with the best? I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it feels great, man. This one feels different than the rest for some reason, and I think it's the format. I fished against great anglers in the other ones that I fished too, but from top to bottom, this was a stronger field. These Bass Pro Tour events are, in my opinion, the hardest to win. And to be honest with you, I didn't really know if I'd ever win one of these or not. I'd been fishing this is my 5th year, and they're just incredibly hard. It's so hard just to make the top 10. So it definitely this one feels different. Like I feel like this was an accomplishment. In my mind, like it's right up there with the Forest Wood Cup and anything else that I've done as far as just a level of accomplishment that I feel.
So what do you think about the switch from the catch all you can catch to the 5 fish? Is that better for you, or do you care?
Yeah, and I think it's better. I didn't really care when they were proposing the switch. It didn't matter. Like I told, in fact, I didn't even vote. It was put out to vote, and it didn't matter to me one way or the other. If push comes to shove, I probably felt like I had a better chance to win one with the 5 fish limit format versus everything counts. But I enjoyed everything counts. Like I had some tournaments that I did really well doing that. that if had it been a 5 fish event, I wouldn't have done well. And by the same token, I fished some last year and previous years that I didn't do well or didn't do that well in the event, but had it been a 5 fish limit, then I would have done really well. Cayuga was one. Yeah, I think Cayuga I think I'd have done really well there in the 5 fish limit. I just wasn't catching enough. So I think in the end, it's probably easier for me to win a 5 fish format versus everything counts.
And how about the pressure of the score tracker with the 5 fish compared to the catch all you can catch?
It's easier. It's easier to manage. Before when everything counts, if you let's just say you went 2 hours and you didn't catch one, you start feeling like you're so far behind that it mentally like you start to lose your mind, and it really takes a toll on you. But in a 5 fish limit, even if you don't catch one in the whole period, you only got to catch five. And
Right.
so you can think back to all those different days when you were fishing 5 fish limit tournaments where maybe you didn't even have one at noon, and then you got 5 good bites in the afternoon and you're okay. So you don't stress over the score tracker as much. There's still just as much movement with the score tracker, but I think guys don't stress over it like we used to. So you're able to relax a little bit. And let's just say you go out there like when Jonathan Van Dam in this past event, he busted 21 pounds in the first, 20 minutes or so. Man, the rest of his days, he just cruises. And in the previous format, he wouldn't have been able to do that. He wouldn't have relaxed. He couldn't have practiced. He would have still been trying to catch everything that he could catch, and he would always be putting pressure on himself to catch the next one. So, it just gives you an opportunity if you do have a good morning, like you can kind of take a little bit of a breather, use that day for for scouting or whatever. But you don't have to just be sitting there just lamenting over every fish that gets caught by everybody else.
Well, we're gonna wrap this up in just a minute, but back to the score tracker. I got one other question about that. So the final day of stage 3, were you getting regular score tracker updates? Were you trying to keep up with what was going on? And you kept saying, "I got a 315 I need to get rid of." Did you really think you need to get rid of that 4-pounder?
I mean, you never know. Like I wanted to get rid of them, and had I gotten rid of that 4, I'd like to have gotten rid of the 4.6 that I had after that. I mean, you never know. I mean, I did the math. I mean, if I caught an 8-pounder, he'd be right. He was going to be right there with me. It was going to be
Right.
tight. So still somebody was one bite away. I mean, I just got a bite like that. So who's to say that he wasn't going to catch one like that or bigger? So I definitely wanted to get rid of it. Maybe there towards the end, like I probably there was a short amount of time where I probably felt really good there toward the end before they called lines out, but it wasn't until that last hour when the weather turned really bad, I felt really good. When it got really bad and I knew it was going to be hard for guys to even move around, and it was blowing so hard that it made so much stuff unfishable that I felt like at that point like it was probably a done deal, but still wasn't. It wasn't 100%, but I was maybe 95%.
Yeah, well, we saw that happen with Chris down in Florida. Last 30 seconds, but
Yeah.
and you're right about when that weather changed, man, it changed. It was one of the most drastic.
That was the most drastic weather change I think I've ever been in, at least on the water. It sure enough was.
All right, so let's get this next question from Bill here, and
Right.
we hadn't heard many people talk about this. I know it was an issue for a lot of anglers.
Yeah, I saw it a minute ago. It was a good question.
The stripers and the swim bait. I imagine that would have been a nightmare.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I couldn't have fished where I was fishing using something like that because you would have done nothing but catch stripers, and that's why I just started really leaning on the drop shot because I could fish in and around those stripers and not worry about having to deal with catching them. And so any of the bass that happened to be in that area, I think those stripers kind of activated them, and you could just get the drop shot down through those stripers and have an opportunity to catch any bass that were either traveling with them or ones that were just in the general vicinity. Anytime, and I've caught a lot of largemouth on that lake, be it in the this time of year or summertime or even in the wintertime when we go striper fishing. Like we go out there and fish for stripers in the wintertime, and I've caught a lot of big largemouth in with those stripers, and sometimes out in the middle of the lake. But most of the time, it's up when they get kind of closer to the bank. But I just think by using the drop shot, like I eliminated all that wasted time catching stripers, taking them off the hook, and it allowed me to catch any bass that was in the area. It just gave me a much greater chance of having an opportunity to get them to bite.
All right, and last but not least, so you're good with that forward facing sonar. When you were fishing, could you tell the difference between the bass and the stripers?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time for sure. The stripers are spastic. That's the best way. That's the best word to describe the way I see them on the live scope. Is they're just spastic, and they're herky jerky when they move. And so when you would throw at those fish and they would follow it down, you could tell that they don't just follow it in a straight line. They swim left to right, like they would follow it down almost like a spiral, and they just never sit still. Like they don't like to sit still. And so if I ever saw a fish that was down there close to the bottom and he wasn't moving very much, that was probably a bass. Or if he was suspended up in the water column, one of the last ones I caught, I think that 412, he was only about 6 foot under. And when I looked at him on the Garmin live scope, he was just sitting still. And I figured it was not a striper, and so when I threw that one, he went straight down, followed the drop shot down, and picked it up. So you can tell, and it's basically the movement of the fish. It's not the shape of it's not the way it draws it. Obviously, I mean, I can't tell the difference in the way the shape of the fish, but you can just tell by the way they move most of the time whether or not it was a bass or a striper.
Right. So we're about halfway through the season. What event coming up are you looking most forward to?
Cayuga. I'm looking forward to Cayuga. I had a lot of fun there last year. I caught some big ones, man. I think my best 5 on the last day we fished there were like 26-10, maybe all smallmouth. But that's going to be a fun one. This should be a great time. I think that there's going to be a lot of big largemouth caught as well, but I think it's going to be another good event.
That's where we went walleye fishing too, isn't it?
No, that was my lags. Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind going back and smoking some of those walleye either.
Hey, Anthony is scared of a leech, though. Just let me tell you.
Oh, come on, man! I'd let him suck on me a little bit just to get him a little bit fatter before I put him on.
We got to go walleye fishing with some live leeches. That was a lot of fun. Anthony, I'm not going to keep you any longer, my man. Get back to your family. Enjoy the beach. Proud as hell of you. Absolutely proud as hell of you.
Thank you. And, I appreciate it. It means a lot.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Be down that way for the elite at Murray, and I think I'm gonna look you up when I get down there.
I may have a spot for you.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you, man. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
Talk to you. Bye.
See you.